In 2004, I shot my first feature-length film, and after editing it together, like so many other filmmakers before me, I found that it didn't work. And the short films that I made before that didn't work. So for the last 20 years, I've been trying to figure out why my films didn't work. And trying to find out why my films didn't work, I read over 500 books on all aspects of filmmaking in search of the answer. And after reading all of these books back here, I will tell you right now at the outset, I never found the answer that I was looking for. At least, not in these books. That is what I learned after reading over 500 books on filmmaking. That the answer to the question, how to make a film work, wasn't in any of these books. But how can this be? How can I read over 500 of the very best books on filmmaking and not learn how to make a film work? The answer to this question might surprise some of you. There is a difference between knowing how to make a film and knowing how to make a film work. I know how to make a film. I've made films. At the time, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about filmmaking. I found out the hard way that while I knew how to make a film, I didn't know how to make a film work. I even read John Borstein's book, Making Films Work. And it's a very good book, and I highly recommend it to aspiring filmmakers. I even read Bruce Kaven's book, How Movies Work. These books help to define what makes a film work, but not how to make a film work. We all kind of understand what makes a film work just from watching films that work. We're all critics. We can all say what worked in a film and what didn't. And that's part of the problem. I confuse what makes a film work with how to make a film work. The what is self-evident after you've watched a film that works. The how is not evident at all, and is more about the internal filmmaking process rather than the external results of that filmmaking process. I was looking for the how to make films work, not what makes a film work. So the question now becomes, why did none of these books provide the how? Most of these books were written by film school teachers or film scholars, not necessarily professional filmmakers working in the film industry. This in no way diminishes the filmmaking information in their books. It's great information, and I learned a lot about filmmaking from these books. It's just that I was looking specifically for how to make a film work. And this information would have to come from someone who has made a film that works. There are no books written by Steven Spielberg, or James Cameron, or Stanley Kubrick, or David Fincher. There was a series of essays written by Sergei Eisenstein made into a book, and it did have some useful information about his theory on Soviet montage. There were interviews of Alfred Hitchcock, conducted by French New Wave director Francois Truffaut, that provided some very useful information about filmmaking. Francis Ford Coppola published his notebook from The Godfather. I have the books written by directors Elia Kazan, Alexander McKendrick, Sidney Lumet, Spike Lee, John Badham, Robert Rodriguez, Mike Figgis, David Mamet, and others on my shelves right now. And as a side note, I've watched the masterclasses of Martin Scorsese, Werner Herzog, Spike Lee, Jodie Foster, Ron Howard, and James Cameron. But even in all of these instances, none of these filmmakers provided the internal process on how to make your film work. Most film directors, like most artists, work intuitively. Some people believe that filmmaking talent is just an innate gift, and that the successful filmmakers are just geniuses. And this is true to a large extent. They are geniuses. But I've seen the first films of most of these geniuses, and there is no sign of genius in their first films. Not even in Spielberg's. The greatest filmmakers of all time somewhere learned how to make their films work. Even the geniuses. They learned either through trial and error, or from a mentor like cinematographer Greg Toland, who taught Orson Welles how to make his films work. After reading over 500 books on filmmaking and researching the backgrounds of the most influential filmmakers of all time, I know how they learned how to make their films work. D.W. Griffith directed over 48 films before he made Birth of a Nation. Sergei Eisenstein, coming from a theater background, studied with Lev Kuleshov at the world's first film school before directing Battleship Potemkin. Alfred Hitchcock directed over 50 films before he made Psycho, the film that he is most known for. Even Steven Spielberg directed 16 films before making Jaws. And each of these great directors also collaborated with great cinematographers and great sound designers and great editors and great composers on their great films. They also collaborated with other great filmmakers. There was something that these geniuses came to understand about filmmaking, about cinema, that allowed them to make the great films that they did. I wanted to know what it is that they understood about cinema that I had yet to understand. It is critical that a director gain experience making films before he or she learns how to make those films work. But at some point they come to understand how to make the films work. After my disappointing feature-length film debut, I wanted to at least understand the basics of how to make a film work, and then put that into practice before I attempted to make another film. I didn't want my audience sitting through another film that didn't work. After 20 years of stubborn and intensive study, and under the guidance of my muse, I've come to understand how to make a film work. The key is in understanding the internal narrative of your film through a process of subtextual analysis. The internal narrative is the foundation of a film that works. This is filmmaking from the inside out. If you're interested in learning more about filmmaking from the inside out, I have a free book detailing the process of subtextual analysis for film directors, available at the link in the description below. If you're interested in learning more about filmmaking from the inside out, like and subscribe to this channel. I will be sharing much more of what I've learned over the last 20 years.